Hello people of the internet, Gulala here, bringing you my thoughts and impressions on the Nioh beta. Before I begin, let me say that I've had a lot of fun playing the game. It has been a blast all the way and I'm really looking forward to what the full game will have to offer. Also, I'll be showing some gameplay that might be considered as light spoilers, so you've been warned. Okay, so first off, a little background. You play a character named William who ends up stranded in Japan while looking for a certain person. William arrives during the Warring States era, so you can bet there are plenty of samurais looking for someone to try their weapons on. There also seems to be a war between the humans and the yokai, which are demons from a parallel dimension. Also, William is based on a real-life figure called William Adams, the first Englishman to reach Japan and become a Western samurai. Let's talk about the combat. So for people that didn't play the previous alpha, the game's combat has three stances: high, mid and low. The high one focuses on damage and draining the opponent's stamina, but at the cost of slower attacks and the risk of losing your own stamina very quickly. The middle one is very versatile, can be considered as neutral ground as it takes bits from the other two stances, but its main feature is that it relies strongly on block skills like parries or special attacks that you can do after a successful block. The low stance has increased mobility and quicker attacks, making you able to interrupt your enemy's movement. It also takes little stamina, so stringing combos is easier on this stance and you can also acquire dodge skills. The con is that this stance has the lowest damage of all three. However, this is the stance I found myself playing with through most of the game, as I feel that its damage has been boosted since the previous alpha, becoming more viable. There is a fourth stance which allows you to sheath your weapon and can be used to perform stylish joint attacks. The biggest improvement for me combat-wise is the new hard lock-on system replacing the old one. In the previous alpha, the only way to strafe was to hold the black button. If you didn't, your character would run around but not circle around the opponent you were facing. That didn't make sense to me, especially when you wanted to get some distance from your opponent and William would turn his back while still being locked on. So my opinion on this change was mixed at the beginning, because I think that the previous lock-on was an attempt from the game to differentiate itself from Dark Souls by placing the camera in a more grounded and cinematic position. And although this new change in camera feels way more comfortable, it felt as I was playing Dark Souls in samurai armors. But as the game got more difficult, it encouraged me to make use of other mechanics to be able to advance, such as ki pulses, ninjutsu, or Nioh magic. And then I started to realize that it was better to lean on smooth gameplay than on cinematic fights. This change makes the combat much easier to grasp, and when you manage to gracefully combine all your skills while switching stances on the fly, you will end up standing on top of your enemy's corpses and feeling like an unbeatable swordsman. But if you mess up once, just once, the game will smite you like an unforgiving Buddha, sending you straight to hell. Thankfully, luck will be sometimes on your side and you will get a second chance. Next one is durability. The developers decided to remove it from the game because it became an obstacle for the player's enjoyment. So now we won't have to worry about breaking our main weapon before fighting a boss. I guess the mechanics sounded great on paper, but gameplay wise, not so much. Just picture yourself with no elixirs and your two best weapons broken, standing in front of the boss room. At the first time, it may feel as a true challenge, but if it happens too often, it becomes more of a chore and just something that instead of adding to your overall experience, it just hinders it. As a means of further consolidating Team Ninja's decision, the familiarity system has taken the place of the previous mechanic, granting bonuses the longer you use the weapon, which encourages the player to keep the same weapon so it can benefit from the samurai points and damage boost it gives. Besides buying and selling weapons and armor, the first thing you can do at the blacksmith is to reforge your weapons, which means you get to reroll specific traits of your chosen weapon. The second most interesting thing you can do is to soul match, which enables you to have one weapon inherit an ability from another one. The catch to it is that you need to maximize the familiarity bar on both weapons to be able to achieve it. Using this feature wisely will let you keep your favorite weapon for a long time. Additions such as these will surely keep curious players very entertained, as they will spend many hours trying all the possible combinations until they find their ultimate weapon. One thing that quite bothered me was the reduced amount of item shortcuts in the game. In Dark Souls you get a slot to switch between a set amount of items, while in the Nioh Alpha you had to try and juggle everything with only 4 fixed slots. Setting both ninjutsu and omio left me one slot that it will obviously go to the elixirs. Then what about the other items like the explosives or the swords? Well, thankfully, this has been fixed. As of now, Nioh allows you to switch between 2 shortcut tabs with the push of a button. It's such a tiny change, but it helps so much in eliminating unnecessary obstacles. So if you end up dying, you can blame it on unfair enemies or on yourself, but not on clunky controls. Another welcome change is the fact that now you will be able to join a friend right away thanks to the password matching. Not much to say about this one, it's great to have it included in the game. Side quests have been added as a means for your character to further level up and get new kinds of loot. And you don't really have to do them alone since you can undertake these missions with another player. Completing these side quests will grant you rewards depending on the difficulty of the mission. They can be repeated as many times as wished. Again, this is not something revolutionary. Many games already implemented such a thing in the past. All games that let you tinker in some way with weapons or items tend to include this mechanic since it gives the player ways to grind loot and experience, and also you can get a break from the main story and just hack some demons. There is also a hardcore version of the side quest called Twilight Missions, which has new enemy positioning, variety, and also harder difficulty. If you manage to complete them, you will get some top-notch loot. And last but not least, to help new players get a hold of the most important things before setting off into the dangerous world of Nioh, and die regardless of what you learned, they've added a tutorial that takes place inside the dojo, and you get to smack people with a wooden sword. The thing I enjoyed the most in the tutorial was that I could actually stab people with a wooden thing. Demons will regret underestimating Morningwood. So those I believe are the main additions to the game. Now I would like to share with you some of the impressions I had while I was playing. I really like the dual katanas and its samurai skills. When I was not dying, I really felt like a cold assassin striking his victims without mercy. Also, as I said before, this game really encourages you to use all your arsenal because of how thin the line between life and death is. As soon as I reached the mansion on top of the hill, I had a really hard time, and because of that, I started taking into consideration everything that I wasn't doing up to this point. I began using key pulses more often, and I tried to take advantage of all the techniques I had learned so far. So in a way, the unforgiving nature of the game is a stern but very effective teacher that in the end we feel very thankful for. The sweet dance of death known as telegraphed moves are indeed present in the game, and as always, you get to learn how the opponent moves after many tries. And then, when you manage to understand him, he's down for the count. Or so you would think. Nioh doesn't let you rely that much on this, because most of the time, when you least expect it, your opponent might do something unorthodox. I'm looking at you, Tachibana Mureshige. So even though you're confident about what you're doing or what you're up against, you still are afraid because you can't be 100% sure of what the enemy might actually do. The music is catchy. 2 songs got stuck in my head. The first one being the Mission Select song. And can you guess the second one? Yeah. Well, this wraps up pretty much all I had to say. Did something interesting happen to you during the beta? Do you have any amusing anecdotes? Feel free to share them in the comments below so me or other players can read them. If you liked the video, click that like button and subscribe. More videos will be coming up. And remember, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you're always welcome here.